There are only two big corporations in the market for commercial airliner manufacturing. One of them is the Boeing company. The other is Airbus. And together they have a duopoly in the industry. If you had to look back at the past decade or so and decide which company has done better, Boeing or Airbus, it wouldn't be a particularly difficult call. Boeing has had multiple planes full of passengers fall out of the sky, apparently because their automated safety features didn't work very well. And just the past year, they've also had a door fly off mid-flight on a Boeing 737 over Portland, a wheel fly off of a Boeing 757 while it was preparing to take off in Atlanta, a tire fly off of a Boeing 777 over San Francisco, damaging several vehicles in a nearby parking lot. So there's like pieces falling off all over the place. Airbus, meanwhile, certainly hasn't been immune from disasters, but things have generally gone a lot better. Their most high-profile crash of the past 2 decades, Air France Flight 447, was caused by pilot error, not anything having to do with the manufacturing of the airplane. And that could be why Boeing's stock is down more than 50% over the past 5 years, while Airbus is up nearly 15%. Based on this information, if you had to guess, what would you estimate the CEO of Boeing makes? Would you estimate that he's taking home more or less than the CEO of Airbus, or about the same? Well, as it turns out, the CEO of Airbus, who's had the job for several years, makes around $4 million in total compensation. But in the past few years, Boeing has had 2 CEOs. One of them was ousted after the Boeing MAX aircraft started crashing. He took home more than $60 million for his golden parachute. His replacement, Dave Calhoun, has announced that he's leaving the company at the end of the year after he failed to right the ship. And in testimony before the Senate this week, Calhoun revealed his salary. We played some of this on the show yesterday, but here it is again in case you missed it. Watch this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Calhoun, what is it that you get paid currently?
Senator, that's well disclosed in our proxy documents in each of the years that I've been employed.
Yeah, but what is it?
It's a big number, sir.
Well, let me help you out. It's $32.8 million this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
That's a 45% increase over last year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
What is it you get paid to do exactly?
I get paid to run the Boeing company.
You know, have you seen the reports that the subcontractor that you use to make that door piece that fell out of the sky, that when the FAA went and toured the facility, they found one door seal being lubricated with Dawn liquid dish soap and cleaned with a wet cheesecloth, and another was being checked with a hotel room key card. Does that sound like safety to you?
Senator, I think our relationship with that particular supplier has been well documented, reviewed by the FAA, and most certainly us, and I'm very intent.
Really? Because we've had whistleblowers. You said you'd listen to whistleblower testimony. We've had multiple whistleblowers come before this committee and allege that Boeing is cutting every possible corner on quality and safety, not just in the past, but now. They've alleged that you've eliminated safety inspections, that there are fewer there are fewer inspectors doing quality inspections out there. They've alleged that when they raised quality issues and concerns, they were reassigned, they were retaliated against, they were physically threatened.
So he's paid several times what the CEO of his major rival is paid, and he's getting all that money to oversee a company where the doors are falling off mid-flight and the whistleblowers, at least the ones who aren't dropping dead, are flagging all kinds of serious compliance issues internally. This is the kind of discrepancy that suggests that there are some very serious issues with the incentives and how the incentives work in the airline industry. The executives who ensure safety should be rewarded, not the ones who are obviously doing a very terrible job. Are you still struggling with back taxes or unfiled returns? This year, the IRS is escalating collections by adding 20,000 new agents and sending millions of demand letters. Now that tax season is over, collection season has begun. Handling this alone can be a huge mistake and cost you thousands of dollars. In these challenging times, your best offense is with Tax Network USA. Upon signing up, Tax Network USA will immediately contact the IRS to secure a protection order, ensuring the aggressive collection activities such as garnishments, levies, or property seizures are halted, providing you with a peace of mind and financial security. If you haven't filed in a while, if you need amended returns, or if you're missing records, Tax Network USA's expert tax preparers will update all of your filings, eliminating the risk of IRS enforcement. Tax Network USA will evaluate your financials and create a settlement strategy to reduce or eliminate your tax debt, putting it behind you for good. Don't wait any longer and call my friends at Tax Network USA today. For a complimentary consultation, call 1-800-245-6000 or visit tnusa.com/Walsh. That's 1-800-245-6000, or visit tnusa.com/Walsh today. This kind of thing matters because there is a constant stream of near catastrophes that are taking place in aviation. It's been a while since we've talked about this, so I'll run down a couple of them very, very quickly now. This is far from an exhaustive list. So just the past 3 months, there were 2 near collisions at Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. And in one instance, a plane was cleared to taxi across a runway where another plane was taking off. And in another incident, one plane was cleared for takeoff while another plane was cleared to land on an intersecting runway, which is not how you want these things to work generally. Watch.
Blue Street 5226, left turn at November behind the Embraer, ground point 7.
Left turn November behind the Embraer, ground point 7, Blue Street 5226.
Stop. Southwest 2937, stop.
We stopped. We were cleared to cross runway 4.
And we're stopped, JetBlue 1554.
JetBlue 1554, do you have room to get around the Southwest or even double back onto runway 4 full length?
Looks like we can make a left on Alpha, JetBlue 1554.
Thank you, sir. JetBlue 1554, left Alpha, back to Zulu, short of runway 4, and advise ready.
Okay, left on Alpha, Zulu, short of runway 4. We'll let you know, JetBlue 1554.
So that is 2 incidents at the same airport within a month. Each one could have cost hundreds of people their lives, and that's just one airport. It's an airport that I think I'm taking off from tomorrow, so that's a little disturbing. Anyway, a couple of months ago, there was also a near catastrophe at JFK Airport where multiple planes crossed a runway while a jetliner was preparing to take off. Fortunately, the pilot saw what was happening and aborted the takeoff, but if it had been a foggy day, there could have been a disaster there. So we've come very, very close a number of times. Given the unfolding nightmare in the aviation industry, you might hope that that trade groups in the industry would be doing everything they can to prioritize safety, given what's going on and given what this all seems to be leading to. You think they call for additional training for both pilots and air traffic controllers, for example? Or maybe they demand an end to DEI hiring. Or maybe they'd insist that CEOs stop making $30 million to run airlines where the doors are falling off mid-flight. But none of that appears to be happening. Instead, the Airline Pilots Association, the largest pilots union in the world, just instructed its members that it's vitally important that they stop using gendered language. So this is what they're focused on. And in particular, it's very important that they stop making jokes about the word cockpit. This is the most pressing issue that they have identified at the moment, and now the pilots union is laser focused on solving it. Hopefully you feel safer already. The Daily Wire reports, quote, the Airline Pilots Association International, the largest airline pilots union in the world, published a diversity, equity, and inclusion language guide to its members in 2021, instructing them to refrain from using words such as cockpit, airmen, and manpower in order to reflect the diversity we have at ALPA and to create a more inclusive workplace. According to Breitbart, this inclusion guide states, quote, while the word cockpit dates back to the 1900s, it has been and may be used in a derogatory way to exclude women in the piloting profession. Many women have heard a variation of, it's called a cockpit for a reason, by a male pilot, suggesting that women do not belong in the piloting profession. The guide also warns against using terms like mother and father, which of course are very offensive because those words, quote, may inadvertently ignore different family structures, such as caregivers, same-sex parents, step-parents, families with adopted members, and more. Fox News reached out to the union, apparently, to determine if this could all possibly be real. The union responded by stating that, quote, there are real threats to aviation safety, like efforts to replace pilots with automation or lower training and experience standards, but opening the doors of opportunity to ensure we have a robust supply of qualified aviators isn't one of them. In other words, they're suggesting that this robust supply of qualified aviators consists of applicants who would be turned off from a career in flying if they heard the words mother or father or cockpits. This is the kind of emotionally fragile individual they're looking to hire, apparently. And even as they admit that, they're claiming that it's going to make flying a lot safer somehow. Those airlines wouldn't have been on a collision course at Reagan Airport if only the pilot had never heard the word cockpit. Maybe the pilots were distraught about having just heard that term, and that's what led them to be so distracted. This has been the dominant mode of thought in aviation for several years now. In 2021, the CEO of United Airlines, Scott Kirby, gave his song and dance about the importance of hiring people who aren't white men. Scott Kirby, of course, appeared immune to the irony of the fact that he is a white man, and yet he still has not stepped aside as the CEO of United. Watch this clip and listen carefully to it.
How is diversity and diversity targets working into the Aviation Academy?
We have committed that 50% of the class of the classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country.
White males don't just dominate in the cockpits, also in the C-suite at United Airlines.
Well, look, at United, I'm proud of the diversity that we actually have in our C-suite. I think if you look around corporate America.
So did you catch that? The interviewer said the word cockpit there. It was clear as day. He said white males dominate in the cockpits. And yet Scott Kirby said nothing about it. He didn't correct the interviewer on his harmful language, which no doubt probably discouraged millions of highly qualified pilots from applying for jobs at United Airlines. How can the Airline Pilots Association tolerate something like that? I don't know. Of course, this is all such a waste of time. I've said many times that we are careening towards a major airline catastrophe. And all the while, the people who are supposed to prevent that catastrophe are making complete fools out of themselves. They probably know that if a disaster does occur, they'll walk away with $30 million golden parachutes too. So that gives them some comfort, I suppose. That's apparently their only real concern, not the safety of the public. And that's why the Airline Pilots Association and its effort to ban words like cockpit and mother and father is today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.